Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Float, Odyssey, Telegram, Twitch, sometimes TikTok, and the Prepper Broadcast Network. Welcome back to the workshop, where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is December 10th, 2022. This is episode 218 of the Workshop Podcast. And I just finished up an incredible conversation with Tiffany and Brian, better otherwise known as the Stupid Farmers. It's a hilarious name, and you guys are going to enjoy the conversation. Real quick, let me get into the announcements for today. 3 quick ones. Facebook. I don't mention Facebook often enough, but we have a workshop Facebook group, and it's growing a little bit. It's mostly growing through the reels I put out, but if you are on Facebook and you want a place to interact as part of the workshop community, there's a link below. Grab it, come by and join. Always love having you. Number 2, TikTok. I know most of you listen to me on audio or follow me on YouTube, but you may also know that if you want me in slightly more digestible content sizes, I have 60-second shorts over on TikTok all the time. The channel, whatever you want to call it, is growing like crazy. We should hit 10,000 before the end of the year or maybe early next year. I don't know. It'll be great. But either way, if you like the TikTok format, some of you do, some of you don't, some of you hate it because China, whatever. If you do, grab that link, come by and subscribe and follow and share some of that stuff for me, guys. If you're ever wondering what is one of the best ways to support the workshop that doesn't cost you any money, it's simply sharing the content that I put out. If you like the content I put out, then get out there, just share it. Just take one thing once a week and share something I've created out on social media for me, guys. That goes immensely far in supporting what I do, so thank you. And finally, today's tool is the deluxe 34-piece tire patch kit from Amazon, $16.99 U.S.A. That thing is great. I love it. It was a huge step up from the old Victor tire plug kit I kept. There are better patches in it, better reaming tools. It's just overall a really nice kit. It comes with a few extra bonuses that you don't necessarily need, but honestly, I love the fact that it comes in a clamshell package. It has a razor blade for cutting it off. It has some lube for getting the patch in there. It has a pry bar for getting whatever the debris in the tire is out. And it's just a solid, well-built toolkit. So if you're looking for something to up your automotive preparedness game, that is where to go. Pick up the link from the description today, guys. So with that, I cannot wait for you guys to hear my conversation with Brian and Tiffany. We went all over the place. We talked about homesteading. We talked about, buying land off-grid. Talked about growing up Mennonite, and we spent a ton of time talking about the penal system because they've both worked in corrections most of their life. We've also talked about masonry and a whole bunch of other things. So without further ado, let's dive right into my conversation I just finished up with the Stupid Farmers. Good evening, workshop community. How is everyone out there? I have got I'm excited. It's going to be a fun, interesting interview this evening. I've got Brian and Tiffany from, I almost hate even saying their name, the Stupid Farmers. I love it. It cracks me up, and I feel kind of insecure every time I say it because people will be like, oh, I'm making fun of you, but I'm not. So that's okay. So we've got Brian right now, and Tiffany, you're on the road, aren't you?
I am, and I'll be joining in about 20 minutes.
No problem. Well, we'll get the conversation flowing, and you can jump in and out as need be. So, let's start. Brian or Tiffany, whoever wants to start, tell me who the Stupid Farmers are, where you guys came from. Give me a little of your background, your story.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Go. We were originally from the Philadelphia area, and Garmin and I worked for a prison system, and we met, and we decided to go off the grid, and we ended up finding a place in Banjo Country, West Virginia. Nice. And we together have quite capable skills. However, we were taking over where some people had incredible skills as well, but technology had changed, and we were playing catch up, and everything we were touching in our first couple of years just really either really took off and is still lasting on the farm, or
broke.
it broke to the point where where's our fire extinguisher?
Oh.
So I actually have a story where zebra grass and I have a mortal war going on the property. But
Oh.
this was a property that was not on the grid, and these wonderful people really just loved the land and they embraced us like family, and we ended up buying the property off of them. And we realized, as much as we want to be farmers and we really do have knowledge for a lot of capability, we're dumb. There's just so much detail to it, and we realized that the notoriety of stupid farmers tends to work really well with the internet. That
Yes.
most people want to see you fail, not be aggressive. So that's where the name came from, and it's really stuck. And we've built quite a great little community with people that private message. That really is where our bread and butter is. They private message and ask, like, okay, mistake, this is our problem, how would you have done it? And then we try and just build our community bigger and bigger, because truthfully, living outside with minimal village like assistance is almost impossible when you're doing off the, unless you are doing it full time. And we are not. We are still tied to the system in the means of work. So until either we retire or Norman and I always.
Oh, shit. Good story going there. We got the little spinning. That's okay. So we'll ask you then, Brian, while Tiffany comes back. So how much farming experience did either of you guys have before you took the chance? And so maybe back up a little bit. Tiffany was saying, did you guys work with the previous owners of your property for a while, or how did that go?
It's a funny story. Okay, so going way back, I come from a Mennonite background.
Right.
And my father originally actually worked in mushroom houses, growing mushrooms, things like that. And his father was a farmer. And so my father developed some skills from that, not as many as his father had. And then we had some property, and I helped him, with, larger gardens. We did a lot of canning, things like that. And that's how, besides them working, we would supplement our food stores with that. So I pick a lot up with that. I am not a great farmer. A lot of things I learned, YouTube, books, things like that. I've always wanted property. I've always been a fan of West Virginia. I've done a lot of work down here before I even moved down here. And Tiffany knew that, and she's very good at finding things, I've found. She's very resourceful, very good at going online, and she's tenacious. She will not stop until she gets a suitable answer for what she's looking for. It's not always the answer we start with, but we're very good with Plan B, Plan C, Plan C .3. Anyway, so she found the property on Craigslist.
Okay.
And the people that were selling it were not technologically savvy at all, and they took a picture off of a computer screen to post on Craigslist.
You almost would have thought that was a scam. Wow. Okay.
We did. We traveled. We were very cautious about it, and the people that were selling it were also had a lot of bad experiences with it. So we got to meet them. He was an engineer, and she was Tiffany. Annie Oakley is about the best word I could use to describe her. Very intelligent, very knowledgeable. And she would shoot you dead if you came on the property. But they they liked us immediately from the get-go. We had very similar goals, aspirations, and ideas of how we saw the property going. I like being off grid, and they actually took our price, which was less than some prices they had gotten, because those people wanted to develop it, and they were against that.
Nice.
So
can we before we go too far into the off-grid living and homesteading and that sort of thing, can we slide back a little and touch on your Mennonite? I know you said you're only Mennonite as a kid, but so for whatever reason, I've always been enthralled with the Amish. Do you know Hutterites? Have you ever heard of Hutterites? So
Mm,
we have
it's
them.
familiar. It's
Yeah.
a sect of Mennonites.
Yeah, they're German. They they live it's a communal living, and they farm. They look old fashioned, but at the same time they have cell phones, and that kind of thing. So I've always
Right.
been a bit intrigued. So how did what was the upbringing like in the Mennonite faith, and what made you decide to move away from it?
Um, I, there are a few different sects of Mennonite. SECTS.
Yeah.
You have your Old Order. You have your Beachy Mennonite. Your Black Bumper. Things like that. We were more of a modern spin. We had a TV. Our car had a silver bumper. Things like that. But we're in the covering the church, things like that. We were brought up again outside Philadelphia, outside Westchester, in an area called Honeybrook, a very small Mennonite church. About 125 members went to it, and we did have some that made their own shirts, were suspenders with it, but everyone had a vehicle. But I went to private school growing up until 10th grade, and about that time I had a wild stage. I've never been one that likes being told what to do.
Fair enough.
I fight the system daily.
Good.
Pretty
I
much
like
the
that.
only person I listen to is Tiffany, and even then, I very calmly, if I don't agree with what she's saying, I won't tell her no, but she's very good at listening to my opinion. But my parents, the bishops in the church, the pastor, the people that ran the school that I went to, they were very quick about no. And I got into some trouble, and to get me out of trouble, they sent me to public school.
Oh.
But what's funny is that when I switched from private school to public school, I started working. So my senior year, I had a 4.0 grade average. So I was not getting in trouble, and it just worked out better for me. So that's kind of really when I started revolting, and just kind of never went back.
Did you get, because I know you're a Mason, we'll touch on that a bit too, but did you get started in Masonry in the Mennonite faith, or was that something you get into just at post?
I started Masonry the year I graduated high school, and I graduated at 17.
Okay.
And the company I worked for in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, was a Mennonite-based company. We had a bunch of guys there that did not drive, and we would pick them up in trucks and drive them around. But that's pretty much, you're either going to go with a small Mennonite company like that, or you're going to get into a really large company out of Philadelphia or out of Reading or something like that. So, I mean, it had nothing to do with me coming from Mennonite. It might have helped me get the job that my parents were Mennonite.
Sure.
But I don't know.
Okay. And one other quick question about that. When you kind of moved away from the Mennonite faith, were you able to go back and see your family and that sort of thing? Or is
yeah.
Okay.
It's not the same as being shunned by the Amish.
Perfect. That's what I was kind of getting at.
No,
okay.
I wasn't shunned at all. I mean, I get along with all. I still see friends,
nice,
that I went to school with. Excuse me. But no, there was no shunning or nothing like that.
So Martinson family in the comments here said Hutterites have colonies, Mennonites have church. So that is, I forgot. Yeah, the Hutterites here, they all live on one big compound. So they have the single people have what you would be like, apartment buildings. They'll build big long buildings with little condos in them, and then they'll have married couple housings and that sort of thing too. So cool. Okay. Yeah. And
now I wonder the Mennonite sect was started by Menno Simons. So I wonder if the Hutchinson was started by somebody else with a similar.
I'm going to I'll find out. I've never looked into it. So, and I worked for about 10 years for the largest hardware company in Canada called Home Hardware. And our national headquarters was in St. Jacobs, Ontario, which is also the largest Mennonite community in Canada. So whenever I would go there, you would, that's what got me intrigued, I think, was just, I used to chat with them, and I love the old ways that, they would bake bread and they'd bring their preserves and all of that stuff. Right. So I always enjoyed it.
Now, my father did missionary work going up to Canada.
Okay.
Now, I was probably 10 or 11. I remember him going up there for a month or so, and he may have been working in those communities. I don't remember. I don't remember the details with it, but I remember he came back and he was excited because he got to ride snowmobiles everywhere, and how everything was so much cheaper and things he bought, and it's just. But I remember him doing missionary work up there, and I think it may have been with them.
Okay.
Maybe they're kissing cousins. I don't know.
You and Tiffany, were you guys? So, how long you guys been together? Roughly.
Let's see, since 2011.
Okay.
2012.
And did you always have homesteading and like off-grid living, or was that because I love everybody's journeys, So yeah, go ahead.
Wait, did you just say that we were together since 2001?
It's
11.
It's a convoluted story. I'm going by how.
Oh, I started some shit now. Go ahead, Tiffany.
No, we weren't.
Well, okay, no, we weren't.
No, we weren't. We did live together, though. But...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
go ahead, dear.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Several years later, he had joked when we first lived together that if we are both divorcees, and he said, if you ever buy me a chainsaw, I'm going to marry you. And, and it was not in a romantic sense. It was, I want a chainsaw. To buy me a chainsaw. So years had passed, and I was really thinking about how we get along well. So I decided to buy him a chainsaw, and like everyone was just used to us living together, not being in a relationship. So it is actually really misconstrued when we actually started dating. That's why I wanted to clear it up. But
right.
the collective is we have been in each other's life because of work. We worked together.
Okay. I met my wife in prison.
12 years. Yeah. Almost 12 years, every day in, we carpooled, everything like that. We just connected because we started talking about how fun it would be, and we don't understand why people don't live in storage units.
Oh, now why don't you expand on that a little bit? Because I've always been intrigued, especially in I don't know, just a worst case scenario, or if you're down on your luck, I mean, most places have rules against that sort of thing, but it's also don't ask, don't tell,
Right.
Yeah.
As long as you can hide your vehicle.
We don't understand why more people don't try to pull it off. Like we did not need to have those kind of means, but we were like, come on. Now Garmin's hiked the Appalachian Trail. He stealth camps.
Okay.
Yeah, I did admittedly play it a lot more safe, especially here in America. I did some backpacking in Europe, but I look back on it and it could have been very dangerous, especially as like a solo female, but luckily nothing ever happened. But Garmin has really done some crazy adventurous stuff that like I'm just beyond proud that he's willing to break the mold and just be authentic. And that's where we hit it off. Like he was willing to think outside the box. It wasn't unusual to be like, yeah, I own a Gold's membership so I could wash because our property doesn't have running water.
That's cool.
We pay $10. Technically, we pay $10 a month for water.
Okay. Is that all it is for a Gold's membership?
It's Planet Fitness.
Oh, Planet. Okay.
Sorry,
same
Planet
thing.
Fitness.
Yeah, Planet Fitness.
So Martinson family said that they're getting misty over there. They wanted to know if the chainsaw was a John Sered.
It was a Steel.
A Steel. Okay, that works too. That's the first.
I've never heard of John's Red.
Oh, really? It's a German company. It's owned by Husqvarna now. Okay. And they make a good chainsaw, which is all owned by Electrolux. So whatever.
She did buy me a Husky weed whacker too. So I don't want to throw that one out there.
She's a keeper for sure. So.
Oh, she is. She's.
Yeah.
I'm brickhead.
So then, man, if you're going to keep throwing out bombs like that, I got to ask about it. How was the Appalachian Trail hike?
It was hell.
Was it? How come?
Because I'm fat and out of shape.
Did you do it when you were fat and out of shape?
I wasn't in the best shape. I was in better shape than I am now. I tore my Achilles, and that kind of mess things up, and that's my excuse I'm going to die with. But I was in better shape than I am now, but I was not in good shape.
Okay.
But for me personally, and everyone who loves me knows this, the best way to get me to do something is to tell me that I can't do it.
Yes, I understand that.
So I started hiking on February 28th. I don't remember the year it was, but I know we had a real rough winter. While I was on the trail heading south, I hit back-to-back blizzards.
Wait. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you went north. You went north to south.
That's kind of funny. I went. I started from where I was leaving in Pennsylvania. I was hiking south, and then I was going to hike back up.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, my thoughts were when I got south, I was either going to head over to Louisiana, or I was going to head back. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I was just doing it. I had a decent amount of money, so that wasn't an issue. So I started heading south. I hit those double blizzards, and the one day it took me 11 hours to go 2 miles.
Did anybody warn you against hiking south from Pennsylvania in February? I'm just curious.
Absolutely. And again,
okay.
The best way to get me is to tell me that I can't do something.
Shit. I love the cold, but man, that is something else.
I'll be honest, that day that I hiked the 2 miles, I was soaking wet. My pants were frozen, and I really thought I was going to die. And I wandered into a state park. And while going into the park, one of the bathrooms was unlocked.
Wow.
And when you opened the door, it had a heat curtain above it that would blow hot air down. So I went into the bathroom, and I stripped down to my underwear. I hung my clothes up in there, and then I would just keep opening the door to get the hot air blow, and I slept in the bathroom that night. And it dried out my clothes, and then from there, I hitchhiked down to Georgia, and then I hiked north.
Okay. So you did it in pieces or sections or whatever?
Yes.
That is wow. And so you tore your Achilles tendon on the trail? Or
no. That I did. That I did. What year was that? Was 16, right, Tiffany?
Yes.
Okay, so just before I was going to leave the prison and start teaching down here in West Virginia, teaching high school VOTEC, Tiffany, as a present, took me and my daughter to an airsoft arena.
Okay.
And it was just, they give you realistic looking pellet guns, and you walk around shooting each other. And when you get hit, you're supposed to go back to spawn, and then you get started again. I got shot, so I went back to where we started. I went to go running out, and it just snapped. It was a complete snap.
Oh.
It sounded like a 22 went off, and I didn't feel the pain right away. I took a step, and it felt like I was stepping on wet plywood. And I remember thinking in my head, someone better fix that, or someone's going to get hurt. And then on my next step with the right foot, and I was running, it was just that quick. On the next step, then I felt the pain.
Sure.
And I kind of stumbled to my knees, and I heard someone behind me saying, "Oh, he fell. He twisted his ankle." And I'm like, "No, I didn't twist my ankle. There's something going on." And when I stood up and I was trying to walk, it was like my foot was just a bathroom mat. It was just hanging limp. And she took me to the hospital, and I was off my feet there was no weight at all for a month. I had surgery. And I actually had to start teaching a month late because I couldn't get, wasn't out enough to get therapy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Tiffany,
yeah.
Yep. You can say whatever year you guys happened to first, get serious or together with, but were you guys always looking toward moving off grid or homesteading, or did that kind of grow over time between you two?
So we had a farmhouse that was split between two counties when we first moved in together. And we realized that the farmhouse was exactly what we were looking for, but we needed to expand it. Garmin said what he's looking for is property that he cannot walk in one day. That is what he told me.
Nice. Okay.
So I did the math of what his Appalachian Trail records are, and I figured out that was basically 77 acres.
Okay.
And yep. from there I started looking in the higher numbers, and I didn't ask for 61, but that's where we ended up. We ended up with 61 acres in Banjo Country, West Virginia.
So we met, for any of those out there who don't know or how we made our connection. And this is why I love going to live events. We ended up sitting out in the late September sunshine, and just, I don't even know how I ended up starting to chat with you guys, but it was fun. I remember you telling me about your work and that sort of thing. I don't know if I ever asked you, but was this your guys' first prepper camp, or had you been there previous?
That was our first one.
Me too. So what brought you there? How did you find it and that sort of thing?
I was supposed to be sending Garmin and his best friend to a guy's weekend, and his best friend chickened out because he didn't want to ask his wife if he could take off for the weekend.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm a firm believer that although this is an amazing package, sometimes it looks even more amazing when you get time away from it. Right. So I was trying to send him on the guys again. It didn't pan out. I'd already purchased everything, so I just changed the ticket to my name, and we rented a nice little cabin. It was like, I would say it was like 6-7 miles away. Garmin, would you agree to that?
Yeah, but no more than that. It would take long to get there.
And then we didn't camp physically on where they were having it, but we attended all those classes, and we ended up, that's how we met Pork Chops, the guy from the Ice Road Truckers. Yep. We met you. You were doing the Doomsday 2.0 podcast. Shout out to Jester.
Yes, what a cool dude.
I was crocheting behind one of the vendor tents, and I was listening, and that's how I was picking you apart to find out what you were about, because you also didn't match the identical criteria that was kind of floating around there, much less your location.
Right. Yeah. So yes, that is true. Definitely there's a particular participant at prepper camp, too many P's there, or at least, which is cool because I have come out of the anarcho community. So, I'm a prepper. I believe in voluntarism, which of course is a person's individual right to do whatever you want, as long as you don't hurt other people and steal their shit. Right. So, and prepper camp was a lot of fun, and I have a lot of people I would consider family there. But yes, it's definitely with a slightly different type of person that goes there. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
We discussed most of the way home that it was awesome that you actually passed through Asheville, which is what I consider hippie nation for the East Coast.
Okay.
And I mean, I've had holistic vacations. Garmin's treated me to a holistic vacation down there. It was amazing. It was restorative and an interesting experience, but that's just not us. And then when you mix the prepping lifestyle, which tends, not always, but tends to lead super conservative or super liberal.
Yes.
One or the other. Not.
Yes. How weird. Anyway, sorry, but how weird is that? But yes. Yep.
Yeah. Garmin is closer to anarchy, and I am closer to a moderate. Okay. Garmin doesn't want to be told anything to do, and he wants to leave your shit alone.
Right.
So you're,
I have enough of my own shit.
Yeah. We share shit, but we don't try to take shit. So I'm more, maybe because there's just a little bit of an age gap. I was raised in a pretty political family, also religious, raised Irish Catholic, but I didn't participate. So we take a lot of the religion elements out of that. So that leaves a lot of missing meat for people's agendas a lot of the time. So
yes,
we just don't follow the Kool-Aid list. And so we try to free think, and Garmin doesn't follow everything I do. And I actually work in a place that's obligated to be unionized. Yes. And I became active in the union because I didn't feel the union was representing me. And now I like the direction of the union, and it has changed in a major way for the benefit of the people. And that kind of stuff is not spoken about in politics or anything like that. In such weird ways, our current society is just not allowing us for individual thought anymore.
Yes. Well, you make me smile now that you said that I stuck out as slightly different at prepper camp. So that really makes me happy. That means I stuck true to my values, at least to an extent. So that's good. But I went so the week after prepper camp, I went to an event that you might have enjoyed quite a bit called Self-Reliance Festival. So it was in Camden, Tennessee, and it was more. I mean, a lot more of my anarchist family would have been there, but also it was really cool because, like you mentioned, you have both dichotomies, right? You've got far right and far left. Well, at the Self-Reliance Festival, you had a lot of people from what I would call, the kind of the yoga, granola, far left, right? But who also find common ground in the idea of self-reliance and homesteading and all of that. I think it's really cool. That's all I can say. So.
We don't even very often discuss politics in our house. It has nothing to do with what we need to accomplish in a day. When you need to plant your plants or start your seedlings, that has nothing to do with which direction of the animal you're following. You just have to have the energy to commit the actual required chores to be able to eat, 6 weeks from now.
Because for the most part, whoever's in the White House or in Parliament in Canada really doesn't affect whether you're going to get out and do your chores in the morning or not, right? Or whether you're going to build a business. It might have a slight effect on you, but what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and lose your collective shit over it, or are you going to go do something great for your life?
See, I'm a firm believer that the left wing and the right wing are just different sides of the same bird. So,
amen, brother. We get along really well. Yes, no, you're right. Absolutely. They both fly the same center animal, don't they? So,
yep.
So
now Garmin recently,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Garmin
go
recently has been getting into something he calls prepper porn.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, as in, are we talking like books or what?
Not triple X, but
like doom porn. There's another Canadian guy that does a lot of YouTube videos, and we don't mention his name around here. I'm not saying names. I do watch him. I do follow him. There's a bunch of them. I follow a lot of the Torah podcasters, and it's just because I listen to them doesn't mean I'm going to, as Tiffany says, drink the Kool-Aid that they offer me. But exactly. I get all kinds of insights by listening to everybody.
Yes,
it's
okay. I go into Facebook today, and I had there was a Facebook follower who was talking about how a lot of what happened during the last 2 years was rather disingenuous. The fact that people got sick, absolutely. But the fact that government overreach was in there was, not nice. And then 2 minutes later, they start talking about the flat earth. And I'm like, oh, you see, you did it. You had to ruin it for me. But anyway, so yeah, there we are. But you're right. And I'm a firm believer that just because you're an idiot on one thing doesn't mean I can't learn something from you on another end of things, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I worked with a guy. He was a lousy worker. He was difficult to talk to. He was miserable, and he used to have a saying. He goes, "I may not be good for much, but I can be used as a bad example."
Hey, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So, what does how much time do you spend in West Virginia now? Is it because Tiffany's in PA right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say we try to get together at least once every 3 weeks. But it's my masonry business is crazy. I don't get a lot of time off. For example, I work today. I'm going to be working tomorrow. We start a store that sells a lot of things for $1 beginning on Tuesday. So it's so I don't get a lot of time off. So what I try and do is I work my ass off for 3 weeks, and then I try and take a week off up with her. She has a revolving schedule, so there are times where she'll have a long weekend. We try and put those together. Also, she gets a stupid amount of time off, and all her overtime she gets mandated constantly, and she comps it and uses it for time off. So it's nothing for her to have 11 to 18 days off in a row, and then we try and just work it so that we can spend that time together. And then
So I just wanted to slide. When you said prepper porn, are you a reader at all? Like, are you?
I do.
Yeah. So have you got into any prepper porn fiction at all?
Um, I am American.
Oh, yeah. A
The Get Home
American
series.
Angry
Yes.
Going Home. So we have a
Yes.
book club that we do once a month, and I had Chris. That's his pen name's Angry American. We had him
Okay.
on the show here. So we're all big fans of the Going Home series. Love that series.
Yeah.
Have you
I
read?
wish I had more time to read, but
I know. Well, okay. So we use the word read around here. Really what that means is headphones in and audiobooks, because most of us are either entrepreneurs or, busy doing other things. So yeah, I get a lot of ass time driving between properties. So I put the ear pods in and we listen. So what's when you guys get time on the homestead, what do you guys like to do? What would have been some of your projects you've been working on lately?
well, hopefully the old owners aren't listening to this. But the guy that this place originally started out as a hunting cabin. There was one room, and that was it.
Okay.
So from that point, he was an engineer by trade. And I have an opinion about engineers and architects. No offense to anyone that's listening. I'm sure you're great. But from the guy reading the blueprints, a lot of times it's difficult to make things work when they're drawn, and everyone does copy and paste now when they're doing blueprints. So a lot of the piers that are underneath, he put a lot of nice rooms in here. There's a lot of wood trim, a lot of mirrors because there's no electricity here, so it's designed to catch light that comes in to illuminate the inside without having to use lights.
Nice.
I have solar panels up now, but a lot of the piers, all they are is stacked rocks.
Okay.
Like current.
And as a mason, that would upset you slightly, wouldn't it?
I'm very judgmental. I'm a judgmental prick. So
yeah, I love it.
Right now we're working on I'm pouring concrete piers. We've torn up some floors, and then I close off the rooms. We're pouring concrete piers and then attaching new pressure treated lumber, new flooring, things like that. So I'm gradually working my way underneath the house, re-securing everything.
Okay. And so how off grid are you guys?
We have no electricity. We have no access to electricity.
Okay.
There were poles that went up the property at one point, but they took them out. So
wow.
there's absolutely nothing. I'm not connected at all. I do not have any running water. I collect rainwater.
Okay.
And right now I'm in the midst of cultivating a spring that's up the mountain, and I'm going to run that down and store it in tanks down here, and then all the runoff is going to go out to a generator that I'm setting up with a water wheel, and then that's going to help power the batteries instead of just always solar.
Did you guys do videos on that stuff? I didn't. I checked out your YouTube channel. I didn't see that there was. But
not a lot of videos like that. She tells me to. I am not technologically savvy, and I don't have the patience to hold a camera when I'm working. I'm very.
I understand that. Yep.
OCD about things, so I don't do a lot. So when she's here with me, then she'll video things. But and also timing. I'm tired all the time. 51 years old and doing masonry all day. I get home and I start a fire in the wood stove. I find myself food. I try and clean myself, and now it's dark, so I don't get much done outside of that.
How much vertical lift is there between your place and where the spring is?
A lot.
You could have.
I can't climb down from it without falling.
Okay.
A lot of the property is cliff. The property is designated in tiers coming up. We have a lower tier where there's a small pond. We have apple trees, peach tree, cherry trees down there, and then we have this level and then we have the next level where the garage is, and then a level further up where I planted corn one year, and then it just goes.
Oh, we lost you. Just hang on. I can't hear you. I lost your audio all of a sudden.
You should be good now. I actually was getting pulled over by a police officer for sitting in a parking lot.
Oh, wow. That's okay.
He didn't believe me. I was on a podcast.
Just tell him who. No, that's crazy. Are you
I
still
did.
there, Brian?
Dropped.
We lost Brian. Brian's audio dropped. I can't hear you at all. It was as soon as Tiffany hopped back on. I don't know what happened. So you keep trying your end there, Brian, and see what happens. And that's really weird. I don't know what caused that. You're not muted on my end. That's really strange. I'm gonna boot you back out right quick, Tiffany, and just come back in, okay?
10-4.
All right. Kick from studio, kick yes, there we are. Still can't hear you, Brian. That is so weird. Are you okay with me kicking you out and you coming back in from that same link? Okay, that's what we'll do. So, guys, I do not know what just happened there. We're having a grand old conversation. And Pack Rat says, I need art cards like old silent movies. So somebody wants to play some piano, or maybe we'll have a player piano play in the middle there. And there. Oh, Tiffany's back. Okay. We have Tiffany with sound. So while Brian's coming back in, Tiffany, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the projects you like to work on at the home center, what you've done recently?
A big thing while Garmin, by the way, I typically refer to him by Garmin.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes.
It's just, you'll hear me say it because we worked in a prison system and we tend to do paramilitary style. So I just know him as Garmin, and even my whole family, and I've even heard his kids yell across the store, "Hey, Garmin." So Garmin is actually legally deaf.
Okay.
And wears hearing aids. So if you ever meet us anywhere and he seems like he's ignoring you, he's actually a very friendly guy. He just probably
I might be ignoring people.
Fair enough. You can play it up too.
Yeah, I do. I do all the time.
I might be slightly ignorant, but where does the term Garmin come from?
That's my last
His
name.
last name.
Oh, fair. Yeah. So, okay. So in that kind of, yeah. Okay. So you go, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And
so, yeah, go ahead.
I was usually just called the bitch, but that just followed me from kindergarten. But at the farm, I think one of my favorite things we've done is the honey, collecting from our bees, and we tried the off the grid using the sun through cheesecloth purification system, and we can't.
Oh, we lost you.
We gave it to anybody that would take it because we had so much fun. So,
might be in a bad spot there. It kicked out on you a little bit, Tiffany. Sorry. You're talking about the honey and the sun, using it.
Yeah, we used honey and cheesecloth to naturally melt it and strain it to get the wax out of it and such. And then
how'd that work?
And it actually worked pretty well.
Okay.
It took a while, but it turned out. I thought it was the best honey I had ever eaten in my life. It was very, very fruit flavored.
Really?
And now, like I said, we have a lot of fruit trees around here on the property, so I don't know if that had something to do with it, but it was a very dark, robust honey with a lot of fruit scents and flavors, and it was good. I don't remember how many quarts we had, but we gave a lot of it away because I don't eat a lot of honey, but I have a couple quarts left over. But it worked out well. Again, time consuming. Okay.
So going back a little bit to the water situation, is it high enough that you could give yourself like pressurized water at the house just through, yeah. And we lost you again. What is going every time, Tiffany?
I can just leave.
No.
I apologize. And
no.
I truly apologize to your fans. I did not expect to see my awesome friend go and be awesome at a strongman competition, so I ended up being double booked.
That's
and
okay.
If we are ever lucky enough to be guest of yours again, I promise to even have mood lighting.
Hey, no worries. We'll have you on again. I can tell you right now that we're not going to cover everything in an hour and a half that I want to talk to you guys about, because you guys are rather intriguing individuals. So we'll, but yeah, no problem. I'll keep, and if you get to a spot where it works for you, hop on again. We're just here chatting away for a bit. There we are. Can I hear you now? I think I need to kick you back out one more time. I'm sorry, guys, for the recording. If you're okay, Brian, coming back on one more, and then we'll be good. All right. So, yeah, there we are, guys. You know, what do they say? It's live or it's Memorex. Well, this is definitely live, because on occasion, we have some technical difficulties. I've never seen this happen before, but we've been having a really good conversation about off-grid living right at the moment. I'm going to, as soon as Brian pops back in, I'm going to pick his brain about his water wheel contraption, because I think it'd be pretty cool to have running water on a property and be able to generate electricity absolutely free. There we are. There you are.
Can you hear me
Yep.
now?
I can hear you now. Remember those commercials? Yeah. So
I don't have a great signal here. That could be part of it too.
Okay. That's all right.
I'm using Verizon. I don't
Sure.
know how to say that on them, but it's not great. I think it goes in and out sometimes. That might be the problem we're having.
You know what? That's the joys of live. I've had incredible conversations, and I've had some where they've been so good and I just couldn't get the person through. So it happens. So don't you worry a bit. So talk about your water wheel contraption. I like that idea. That sounds really cool.
What I'm doing is I found a spring up. Now, originally we had an artesian well.
Okay.
That was all the way at the other end of the property, but it was not on our property. It was on the neighbor's property. But we have, I guess you call it mineral rights to it, or land rights, or water rights to it. And the property that we are now living in, it was abandoned for 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
So the guy that owned it put cattle into it and just destroyed the spring. So while going through the property, I found a spring further down the mountain, and it's about halfway up. And again, it is very high. It's, I mean, you can look down on the top of the roof from where it is up there.
Okay.
And I was able to utilize the old pipe that came down from there. So I cut it up higher, and I moved it all down to this. So I put stone down in the spring and put plastic piping, perforated piping with a silt sock around it, and then filled it with stone.
Okay.
So that it gets enough pressure that you need a reducer to bring it into the house.
Sure. Yes.
It blows out the pipes.
Wow.
So what I do is I've hooked it up to 375 gallon totes that I store the water in, but it's constantly running. So I can hook it into the house, but again, it's constant. So it's always going to be running through the sink and then going out to the pond down below. But what I've done with that is I have it run into the totes, and I ran a pipe going out through that, and then it drops down to the water wheel. It's hooked up to a car alternator, which charges batteries that are in the room to the side.
That's cool.
So that,
yeah. What kind of battery bank do you have?
We originally started with 12 volt deep cycle batteries.
Yep.
And they're okay. They're cheap for getting started. Again, for a lot of things I've done, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, it's all new for me, just reading books and YouTube videos and, talking to people. And then we invested in 6 volt scissor lift batteries.
Yes.
And then I cross-wired them to make them 12 volt.
Okay.
And then so I was able to hook them up with my 12 volt batteries. And I don't remember the numbers I have now for how many volts and amps it's pulling in now, but it's enough that I can run the lights. I have a TV, but it's not connected to anything. But I can play video games on it if I want to. I can run a toaster oven. I do not have a refrigerator.
Okay.
So it just takes a lot of power. So I just,
Were the scissor lift batteries used when you bought them?
No, we bought them brand new.
Okay, nice. I love hearing people putting different, because there's certain people in the solar world that are very specific. They're like, you got to do it this way, and that's all you can do. But I love hearing people who you took some 12 volt batteries and then you added some 6 volt batteries. I appreciate that, because you kind of changed as you went, and it works for you, hey?
And I still, sorry, I'm still constantly adapting things and changing things to make things work. Again, we've joked about just tearing down the house and just getting like one of those tiny sheds and starting over.
Yep.
And just putting it further up the hill, a little further off the road than this. I mean, you can't quite see the road from where the house is situated now, but just trying something different. Just the place, it looks nice, but it needs a lot of work. I can see things settling from when he did it. I can see some of the tape is moving from the drywall. There's a lot of neat ideas here, but
it's a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Where I grew up on the East Coast in Nova Scotia, it was very common. My dad, the house he grew up in, same scenario as you guys, had a spring that they dug out quite a ways up the mountain, and it pressurized their house, and then they had to have an overflow from there. So I'm familiar with that. I think it's neat, but they never took it to the next step and powered a water wheel as well. But Haas wants to know, how are you filtering the water, or are you filtering the water?
I'm not.
Okay.
I test the spring about once every 3 months. Tiffany used to be a couponer.
Nice.
So it's funny. We have gallons of vinegar that she bought at one time, apple cider vinegar. I haven't bought toilet paper in 5 years. But it's she found a deal. We got a bunch of water test kits for like $2 each.
Okay.
So she bought all of them. So about once every 3 months, I go and I test the water up the spring to see what it's doing, and I've had no issues with it to this point. Now I'm aware, because now it's where the cattle ruined the first artesian well, that it's way up the hill. Okay. So a lot of the water is going through limestone rocks, going through self-filtering. So the water is clean enough to just drink out of.
And where I grew up, the same thing. We had one where my dad lived, and then we had 2 or 3 kind of what we'd call public springs where I grew up. And so they were a spring that was kind of capped off to a pipe, and people would just come and fill their water bottles there all the time.
We have a couple of those around here.
Yeah. And the one at the Weymouth, it used to be a Pepsi plant. It's been shut down since I was like 4 years old. That water has ran since at least the 1930s, and probably longer, without ever stopping. And it's so there's an overflow kind of 2-inch pipe, and then they have it down to a 3/4 for filling water bottles and stuff.
Yes.
And if you don't hold on to the water bottle, that 3/4 inch will take it, out of your hands. And it's been running that way since about 100 years at least. So it's crazy. Hey.
Yeah. I assume it's self-filtering. It's not like it's at the bottom of a stream, because there is nothing above it.
Right.
There's a big rock face behind it, and down low on the rock, you can see where the water's coming out of the cracks and filling up the depression that I made in. And then eventually I'm going to build a house around it to protect the hole itself. But right now, nothing can die in it because it's got gravel in it. It's just that is filtering it also. Again, I do test it. We started out with rainwater. We used to treat that with bleach.
Okay.
And then we would use that for everything, but then I would filter that through it wasn't a Berkey, but maybe a Berkey light filter that, and I would drink that. I would filter that. I just don't like the taste of bleach. It's funny when I go up north to Pennsylvania and we're up there, I can taste how the water's treated.
Oh yes, it drives me nuts. Absolutely. So when you started with rainwater, what kind of system? Usually they're pretty simple, but first off, I love how you always preface things with, I really didn't know how to do it, so I just went on YouTube and learned, which is, that's how we all do it. But so what did you develop? Did you go through different phases, or did you just kind of settle on something right away for your rainwater catchment?
Actually, I when I first started out, I would put it in buckets. When we get rain, I would fill up buckets and carry it in. We had like 40 some buckets in the back summer kitchen. Then we bought the totes. Eventually we found those. We got those used. They were already cleaned out. So I have 2 of them out where the rainwater comes in. And again, I'll go out with a bucket and fill it up, or I'll attach, I have a transfer pump that I can hook up to it, that I can take it in. Now, with winter being here, it's, freezing. I'm back to the bucket where I empty the tanks out and put it back in there. So so I got to watch all my connections to make sure they're not busting on the big tank. So right now the water's shut off to the house. It's just running straight through. I'm not filling up the tanks.
How cold does it get in West Virginia?
Down here, if we're under 30, they're really cold. I know.
Okay.
When I was teaching, if we hit 15, They were worried about the diesels running, so they would shut school down.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It's not, we're not deep south
Yep.
where it's warmer, but we're also not in Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area where we get a lot more snow and a lot more things like that. It's kind of in the middle. I kind of laugh. We like how they panic down here when there is snow.
Yeah. I mean, we have days here when anytime it gets below minus 30 Celsius, the buses don't run because diesel,
Right.
right? But
Yep.
what I really respect about the prairies is they don't shut the schools down. They give the parents the option. Where I grew up on the East Coast, they would shut it down for, a snowstorm, right? Which, anyway, but yeah, I appreciate that. So parents can come in and drop their kids off either way, right? But
right.
So, how about your what do they, I want to call it, water wheel or whatever? How did that development come about, or what?
It's still in developmental stage. I'm still working on that. I'm still working on the wiring. I have it coming into the tanks, and I have the flow going out, and I'm having problems. I picked up a wire wheel, the spools that electricians use for hauling large amounts of wire.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to work on, and I'm running because everything's so wet and everything's rusty, and you got to watch for mold down here. It's a very damp area that I'm in.
Sure.
It's always seizing up, so that is not working yet. But
Okay.
it seems like a great idea to me, but I haven't quite tweaked it to work for me.
That's
but
okay.
I saw the solar panels are doing fine for keeping things charged. The lights I'm using very low wattage bulbs, and even if I wasn't hooked up to my panels, I could probably go 3 or 4 days, without even charging anything. So I don't use a lot of electricity. I have gas lights or white gas lights that I use inside. Tiffany and I are big on candles. We'll go to yard sales and we try and find junk candles. Like one thing that she found one time was when you got those wedding candles you found.
Yep.
In the little glass, like just little, they were bigger candles. They weren't like just the tea lights.
Yep.
And so I got all those and I let them get hard. I dumped all the wax out and just remade candles and things like that with that. So
nice. How do you like the white gas lights? I don't know many people who use them on a regular basis.
I can't really read by it. That's one thing. Sure. I don't. It's a little too dark for that. But just like moving around the house and doing things, it's okay. I have headlamps that I use for when I'm reading. It works well for me.
Would you have been able to read by them, say, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I went up when I first went to prison. I noticed that getting in. I've always worked outside, but going into the fluorescent lights, that's when I started to notice that I had to have cheater glasses or something to that effect.
Last 2 years, I've noticed it. I turned 40, so I'll be 42 in March, and I started noticing. I'm like, oh, it just sucks. That's all.
Yeah,
just sucks.
Yeah, it's rough.
Hey, Tiffany, who do you got with you?
Apparently, Oliver wants to be a superstar.
Oh, hi, Oliver. My daughter has a dog named Oliver, so that's sweet.
We call him Ollie. Him in a raffle. I thought I was buying like a raffle ticket to benefit a local shelter that I work with here.
Oh my God.
And,
okay.
I didn't realize that if your number was picked, you won a cat.
I don't even know how is that I mean, okay. I love my dogs. Cats are okay, but I don't think I would ever buy a ticket on a cat. That's awesome.
I buy a lot of raffle tickets because there's so many. Our kids are grown. Like our youngest is 23. So like I try to pay it back all the people that ever bought fundraisers or anything like that. So I thought I was doing something that was just like, oh, you're going to help sponsor a cat. If that number, that's where the money goes. Like in my head, that's what it was.
Sure.
The bad thing is one, I didn't tell Garmin I bought the raffle tickets. Two, he doesn't care. He doesn't restrict me on. I mean, he brought 2 dogs home. I brought 13 cats home over time. We by far are a menagerie. That's Echo, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's Echo.
Yeah. That's a cat, a coworker that I used to work with. He's since retired, but he said, I grew up hating cats. When I go home during a 4th of July weekend, that cat sitting on his lap five kittens and a mom. When I get home, I'm gonna kill them. And he didn't mean it as in a torture kind of way. It was gonna be quick, just over and done. But he hates cats. And I was like, hey, I know you don't know me from a hole in the ground. I'm just from across the state, but can I come to your house and get these cats? And we got them all fixed, and they are going to outlive us down there on that farm. But the orange cat here actually has a half brother because I bought 4 tickets and won 2 cats. So
you're I would say the most unlucky lady I've ever met, but no, I'm just kidding. I know that.
I love these cats. We actually rotate them. If they have medical needs, they come up and live with me. The one that you just saw, oddly enough, he did not do well on the farm. He was very anxious down there for some reason. Okay. He wasn't really bullied. He was a sweet-natured cat, but it just didn't do well. And so he came up here to become a mama's boy. Aww. Now we have 2 half German Shepherd, half Australian cattle dogs that are wonderfully being watched while we both work our butts off right now. So from November until a little bit before Christmas, we have a great guy by the name of Jeff. I call him Tripod because I've heard stories about him. Jeff Tripod Yoder, big shout out to call Uncle Yoder, because he's watching our 2 dogs and he treats them like royalty, and his whole family is so good to us and became great friends. So big shout out. Our 2 dogs, we dress them in orange if it's hunting season because we don't really have neighbors. We have 2 state parks. We know we have a bear den, so we try to tread carefully so the dogs don't get shot. And Garmin wears an orange hat and vest if he's going hiking during certain times. Nice. But for the most part, it's free range. They have come back from the woods, just big smile and bones hanging from their mouth. Yeah. They've also killed all our guineas when we had.
It's Wilma the smarter the.
What's that?
Wilma the smarter of the 2. She loves squeaky toys.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with guineas or guinea hens,
yep,
they're loud but they squeak.
Yeah.
And so she could not overcome that. Now she wouldn't mess with the chickens, but the guineas, any chance she got, she would get them and kill them. So that didn't work.
Get away with them. Yeah.
Really cute and guilty for like all of 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So you guys both mentioned you've done time in prison. No. Is that can we talk a little about that part of your life?
Yeah.
Okay. Now
I say names because I'm still active.
Absolutely. I just find it intriguing.
I get paid to yell at men.
So you're a woman and you work in a man's prison, is that right?
Yeah. Yep. I've done max.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yes. No.
Max level.
Wow.
In Pennsylvania, and I've done medium.
Okay.
And I've seen more action in the medium than I have in the max for different reasons. It's like I've worked in the system long enough that the culture has changed. So back in the day, you used to not see child molesters and rapists kind of come out of their cells. I'm not saying they didn't get visitors, but they typically knew better. They couldn't come out. Whereas now I've seen them run prisons.
Yeah, they wouldn't go in general population.
So they would tend to be in protective custody? Or is that what that? Yeah.
Back in the day, it was kind of a self-governed idea that unless you were a gangster or there for non-femoral reasons,
yep,
you're not allowed to touch a child. You're not allowed to touch a woman. That was closer to forgivable, but not usually.
Yep.
And not allowed to be an arsonist or a rapist.
Arsonist too, really? I didn't know that.
Typically, it was because it affected the community.
Huh.
You're allowed to exact Hammurabi's code, but only on typically males.
So, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, apparently being a drug dealer doesn't affect the community. Just saying.
No, that's fine.
Consider that entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just being
self-employed.
Yep. Actually, some very interesting people. I know Garmin certainly has. We've talked about a couple people. There is rehabilitation. in that scenario. There really is. But there are also people that should never be allowed to ever even think about ever seeing civilization again.
No.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that.
But I also believe in any given mistake, and I'm not going to look good in Cocoa Brown, but it's going to be part of my life. So we've marriage talks where, okay, so where is the line of what we can get away with if we decide to accidentally do something crazy that's opposed to the government's current moral compass, that you'll still put money on my books.
That's funny.
Talks.
So what are some of the okay, I go down TikTok rabbit holes sometimes, and there's been this guy recently that I've watched who he does, what does he call it? Jailhouse food or something?
Cheese.
Yeah, do you know? Yeah.
No, but we know the phrases, and I've seen pizzas. Okay, so I spent 6 years of my corrections career actually teaching inmates how to cook food.
Okay, yeah, which is cool. Because you've done everything in prison, right? I remember our conversation at prepper camp.
I haven't done inmates.
Well, yeah. You obviously work in a prison because you have the sense of humor, which I appreciate. So
yeah. I've worked on the maintenance side. I've worked in a warehouse. I used to be the only woman driver for. I work in a man's world. Hands down. You couldn't see me driving the trucks, and I had to stand up to reach the clutch.
Oh my God. Okay.
I'm only 5'. I may or may not have dropped an inmate out of the back of a box truck, changing policy across the state. I have hit a bank with a handy van.
Oh boy. Yep.
There's no shame in my but these are all like real things. Like, we know people that have plowed vehicle visitors their vehicles, and they couldn't find them for 3 days because the snow was so bad.
Oh wow, fair enough. Okay.
But I have taught inmates in different ways, but currently I'm on the custody side.
Okay.
So I like the housing unit. If I get to the point where I would do transportation or transporting them, maybe that too. But at this point, I'm on the downhill slope of my career, hopefully. Not in a bad way, but in January, 18 years. And it's amazing how it's changed. And it's not just politically, it's rehabilitation. Your country,
yes,
versus our country is so different in the penal system. Ours is based off the Quaker morale, particularly in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania had Eastern State, which was the first penitentiary in the United States.
Okay.
And you're not supposed to have any decadence. It was based off the penal code for the Quakers. That, of course, has very much changed. And now California is considered our sister state.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that.
Garmin and I used to work at the second largest prison in the United States.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And there's nothing whatsoever that made you feel like it. But if you watch the movie Shawshank Redemption, it was a lot like that, but in modern day. Like, there's great perks of the career that I did not know existed growing up. It very much is a place that warps your humor, and you can see negative, and you can see constant stress. We have in the corrections community just as high of a suicide and abuse of substance rate, and as coming out of the military. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of them are military.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The mental health is very, very talked about, and one of the oddly best parts of our benefits that's across the United States. At least you wouldn't think that, for how much our country likes to bicker about benefits. But if you're not talking county, you're actually talking state level on higher. They get a lot of grants because of mental health. That doesn't mean every company chooses to adhere by it, but there are quite a few facilities or operations that really worry about it. As long as you're not coming in trying to blow the place up. But if you're dealing with actual demons, they don't want you dealing with that and dealing with inmates that act like demons.
Have you ever seen, we had a story, not a story, but recently, well, where there was, or no, well, anyway, I heard the story. How often have you seen where a female guard has been turned by a male inmate?
A lot.
Yeah, that's
but
a yeah.
It happens way more to men because there's more men.
Yeah.
They just stigma that they don't talk about. Like, okay, I'm on this side of the state for 6 years now.
Okay.
I've watched 5 staff members out of a specific department directly working with inmates get walked out for fraternization or worse.
Right. Okay. I wouldn't have thought because I've never heard it mentioned.
3 of them were men, 4 of them were women.
Okay. So basically 50-50.
And the women are the only ones they talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was salacious, whereas it is not closed-minded as a workplace. I have some great coworkers that are absolutely comfortable with whatever you choose to do behind closed doors. They're not bigots. They're not radicalists in a conservative manner. Nothing like that. They just don't care. They don't want. Sure. They don't go home with you. They don't care.
Right.
But they do care that they have to watch to see if you're hitting on the inmate instead of the cute girl that's supposed to be the prime suspect.
Fair enough.
The term it's only gay in prison.
Right.
Has blown my mind. I've seen quite a few things made out of soap.
And is that a true statement? Or yeah. So what are some of the talking about soap, but what are some of the more ingenious things you've seen inmates either create as weapons or like I love the hot pots I've seen them make and that sort of thing. But what are some of the more ingenious things that you've seen them either do or create or make?
I have witnessed and had to deal with the removal from their cells and stuff. They make things called stingers.
What's that?
The equivalent of what I think you're thinking a hot pot is.
Oh, okay.
They take the wires from extension cords, cables, anything, and they plug them into the plugs, the outlets in the cell.
Okay.
And then connect it to water so that way it heats up.
I've seen them hook them to bed frames and use them like a grill.
No shit. That is so ingenious. Wow. Okay. I mean, in a bad way, but sure. Yeah. Yeah.
The food. I've seen what you would have thought is gourmet food. And I've also seen stuff like, oh my God.
So are they, I guess it depends on different prisons, but can they have food in their cells?
In most prisons, and that means county on up, they're allowed a specific policy approved amount of commissary that they can buy out of a catalog.
Okay.
And federally, they're required 3 meals, but they're not all required to be hot.
Oh, okay. Do you guys ever work anywhere where they serve the loaf?
Yes, but they got that in Pennsylvania.
Is that legal still?
I believe so. If you go below the Mason-Dixon line, they still have chain gangs.
I knew that. Have you ever? Oh, go ahead.
They just fought actually in that last midterm election. Like, I don't pretend to remember the actual numbers, but there was like 7 states that had this vote to get rid of the working crews.
Okay.
And all but 2 of them voted yes, let's get rid of them, and the 2 that didn't have like the actual shackles still. I think it's Alabama and Louisiana were the ones that voted. I'm not willing to quote it, but I believe that was. And I mean, I love the story. I do not hate my job. To the best of my ability, I try to treat these people as human as possible because I really could be sitting in their shoes one day. But there are some awful human beings that even still haven't been caught yet. And I love hearing the stories of like that Arizona prison where there's no walls and they dress in pink.
Really?
Yeah, it's meant for.
Oh no!
It's what she's talking about. It's a work. There she comes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's meant to basically humiliate, but they use it as a psychological tactic to you never want to come back. You never want to do this. You never want to be that embarrassed again. And
they also live in tents out there.
Okay.
Yep, they call it
Wide
tent
open
city.
area all around. So they.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Now, when I was
Go ahead.
when I was working with her, I was in charge of a program called CWP, Community Works Program,
Okay.
and it was not a chain gang, but honor inmates were taken out in a van and they would clean up trash along roads, clean up state parks and things like that. So it's not a chain gang, but they were still out doing work like that.
Did the inmates enjoy that? I mean, not that it really matters to me, but I'm just curious because some of them work hard to get like to the level where they're trusted to do that sort of thing. But does it give them a purpose or something to do, or is it just, you know?
I think it got them. You had inmates that loved their routine. They followed it. They woke up, they would go eat, they would go to yard, they would go to work, they would come back, and you did not want to deviate from their plan. They would never do things like that. Then there were others that liked to go out and they could see people on the outside. It gave them more of a taste of freedom, I believe.
Okay.
So they enjoyed that per se. I think in all my years there, I only had maybe 2 inmates that actually worked hard. The rest of them would come out and it was a road crew. They would lean on their shovels or do whatever they were doing. It's just the one guy I had that really worked hard was Latino.
Okay.
And he was in because he had a crack house on his block and he burned it down. And he didn't know there was a prostitute inside there when he did it.
Oh, shoot.
And
okay.
she died in it. So he was in for, I think, 14 years for that. But he was just trying to clean up his block. But he actually worked. I mean, there were times where it was raining where I did not want to work. And he would come out every day and he wanted to lay block. He wanted to learn how to do it. He wanted to work in the fields. It didn't matter. He just wanted to work. He just wanted to get out of his cell just to make the day go quicker.
The guys in the community, I think Ken was trying to figure out who the sheriff was, but they said it's that Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Maricopa County. So he's the guy that you always see talking on the news conferences and stuff when they interview him about the chain gangs, right?
Yes.
One of them, yeah. The guy who's in charge of Louisiana right now is also the guy they hid for a while when Hurricane Katrina. A bunch of inmates on the county and state level went missing / never were released. Like, what do you do when a hurricane hits and you don't have even enough emergency facilities to get your employees out, much less the inmates? So a lot of the inmates were left in their cells and they couldn't find bodies because you have alligators, whatever is down there, to eat whatever. And then it took 11 days before they could even enter the prison down the backside of Angola. They were talking about right outside the 9th Ward. We were just down there in September after the last hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that it's just battered all over again. So that prison probably has a hell of a FEMA/PEMA response team to pick up with the National Guard now, because the horror stories that happened during Katrina to inmates was, I mean, I was just down there reading it. It's nothing that I had ever heard of. I went down for Hurricane Katrina for cleanup years ago for Red Cross style. And then when we went down again, I was just like, I'm in corrections. How comes I never wondered what happened to the employees down there? And then that leads you down the rabbit hole. What happened to the inmates that they couldn't get out of there? Because they weren't going to put them in the Mercedes Bowl.
When Brian was talking, when you guys were talking about prepper porn and that sort of thing, that's a common theme in a lot of either post-apocalyptic or collapse kind of novels is what happens in prisons when that sort of thing happens. So how far down the rabbit hole do most prisons plan for, say, really bad shutdowns or weather or that sort of thing? Or do they?
I can only speak on the state I live, and there's a lot of plans, but in reality, how much stuff really happens the way you want it to?
Tell them about the school buses and the inmates.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
we were always taught, this is a closed prison now. I'm not talking about my current or anything like that, but we were near a nuclear power plant. If something ever happened there, we were always informed, like, the inmates get evacuated first and then they notify the kids. Or I'm sorry, they notify the kids' parents for the local high school communities within a 3-mile radius. Because they needed all the buses on hand to get to the other prison.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
But
Now,
inmates are wards of the state, so they are, they don't want to get sued. So that's why they took care of the inmates first.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of that, but okay. What about, so you guys touched on rehabilitation a little bit. How effective is the penal system at rehabilitation, and what works, what doesn't? What, I mean, you don't have to, whatever you want to throw out there, but go ahead. Yeah.
Personal opinion, you can, like the farmer and Happy Gilmore, life is what you make it,
Right.
and a lot of them like to see homos naked. So that was a very common. If you choose, you can get a college degree for free in prison.
Right.
But it's up to you if you want to do that. Most people don't feel that they need to. A lot of people don't even feel they did something wrong, but that doesn't it's so case by case. Absolutely case by case. The recidivism rates, versus therapeutic, how many people, they closed down so many state prisons, so many state hospitals across the United States, specifically like Reagan era from
Right.
down. They got rid of a lot of mental health programs, and that you have people that don't belong in prison, that belong in criminal, not, I don't want to say insane asylums, but at least in Pennsylvania, they call them state hospitals.
Okay.
And I actually started my career there at a state hospital, and people care. There are people that care. It's not somewhere where they go and like lock someone away and they don't. I used to get paid to play bingo and ping pong. It was an
Really?
awesome job. And I got to take care of mentally challenged, senior citizens. It was a specific geriatric, and the nurses there were some of the nicest people, and they would beat the patients would beat the hell out of us. And because they're wards of the state, you can't defend yourself. You just have to remove yourself and then report it, and then either medicate or get them untriggered or something like that. And a lot of that ended up flooding into the penal system, at least in Pennsylvania and across the United States. So there's no perfect answer. I know Canada's structure seems to vary. One of the biggest things that I had learned in college was Saskatchewan really, really likes work.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Saskatchewan really, really likes work camps.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they get a lot of their, like, they're not allowed to become your Mounties, but they're allowed to do all the back filing of the stuff, so the people that are qualified with a clean record can still be Mounties. Because you still need your park rangers. You still need, and I might be calling them Americanized names, but your park rangers. You still need your secretaries, your people that are willing to do your gaming and your trapping to help regulate population or illness or anything like that. And in Canada, they really structure it. It seems to be by district instead of across the country.
So when you talk about rehabilitation, then when it comes down to it, like everything, I guess it's a personal choice if you're going to choose to rehabilitate. So if you go in, so yeah, am I kind of reading between the lines? Then at that point, you can give them as many options as you want, but you really can't control whether they're going to rehabilitate or not. It's up to them.
Nope. I've watched some find God, and I've watched some go deeper down the rabbit hole.
Huh. Okay.
I had an inmate that worked in one of my crews. I taught masonry in the prison. I was part of the maintenance program, but I was a masonry trade instructor. And he showed up every day, and he was arrested for selling pot. And it was not his first time. He'd been in a couple times. and he was eligible for parole, I think, in 3 years. And I told him, I said, you have a knack for this. You consider masonry when you get out, so you don't have to come back. And he goes, I'm never going to do this when I get out. And I'm like, why not? He goes, because I can make more in a day than you can make in a month by selling pot. He goes, I'm going to get out. I'm going to go back to selling pot. They're going to catch me. I'm going to come back here for a couple of years. And I'll go back out and I'll do it again. Because that's just what I'm going to do. And he was inner city Philadelphia, but that was his plan. That was, he didn't care. Now he was in there. He had a father that was in the prison, and he had an uncle that was in the prison too. So, but that was just what he did.
Didn't have much of a retirement plan. Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
Nope, my apologies. On a side note, Garmin has one of the best bilingual jokes that actually happened to him for horses that I've ever heard Garmin tell, because he doesn't tell a lot of jokes.
Oh, well, okay. So the guy I was telling you about, the one that started the fire, he always came out, so I always tried to work him, give him full days. And the prison we were on was 1,600 acres. Okay. It was 1,700 acres, but they gave 100 acres to the National Guard. Okay. It was 1,600 acres, a lot of it woodland. There were trails. There was cement projects that I was doing all over the place. We had our own wastewater treatment plant, things like that. We had a mounted patrol that would check the property on horseback. Okay. And then we also had some in 4-wheel drive, whatever. So we were going out to do a job at the wastewater plant, and he did not have a great grasp of English. And he's looking out in the field, and he goes, "Whores. I'm like, what? He goes, I see whores. I see whores. And I'm looking around, and here he was talking about horses out in the field. It took me a couple minutes to figure out what he was saying, but it's just, it was just funny.
That's cute. I like that. So what, so you guys, but what did you see? What were the biggest changes in the kind of penal system over the time you've both been in there?
For me, it went from working to a hug a thug mentality.
Is that what it was? Yeah. So yeah. No, that's fair. And I think that's probably a reflection on society in general over the last 3 decades or so. Hey.
Yeah.
How about you, Tiffany?
I have a significant, even before Garmin had started, I had already worked at the prison. So I saw this very weird, I guess I should start with, if I could have people come in and work corrections, I wish they could start in the direction that I went. They didn't have to take the same walk, but it prepared them so much more to knowing a violent inmate versus a violent and mentally ill inmate.
Okay.
And some people are just militant. Others are just absolutely out of their mind and so gobsmacked that you can't predict what they're going to do. Like, we have guys that will grease themselves up with margarine packets and tell you to come fight them after they strip down naked. And it's just, they have no idea they're doing it.
So, and is there other facilities that they'd be better suited in, those fellers, or does it just not really matter?
They don't exist anymore. A lot of the hospitals are non-existent, at least in most of the United States, not all. Washington keeps trying to reopen them, but they're just such a different state than most of the United States.
And the other thing is, I mean, I know that somebody somewhere has to make that decision, but where do you pick the line that goes from crazy to criminal, right? Because, for instance,
they play, oh my goodness, do they?
Well, that's what I mean, so Becky and I just watched the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix, and, we're suckers for true crime. And of course, his lawyer decided to play the, insanity card, right? And it didn't work, of course. But, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind the man was crazy. But there's also no doubt in my mind that he was a cold-blooded criminal. That's a tough one. I don't even know how you make that decision. And,
In the state of Pennsylvania, there's 3 levels of crazy.
Okay.
There is state institutionalized crazy. There is criminally insane. And and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not getting into policy or anything
No,
like
it's
that.
fine. Yeah.
But they have their own housing. It is very much like a prison.
Okay.
But it's more expected to be restraints friendly.
Okay.
Much smaller habitat, not general pop. The staff is trained differently. And then we could probably medicate the crazy out of you and put you in a regular prison.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the three definitions. You're just too insane to stand trial,
Right.
or you're insane enough to be on the line and be deemed criminally insane. So you're too violent to be in a mental institution. If you ever watched the movie Bronson,
Oh, yes.
he would be in a forensic state hospital.
Okay.
That's the correction side of it. But British Parliament doesn't have it structured that way because they took a lot. They try to take the step forward of therapeutic. And that happened actually way, 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 way before any of our direction went that way.
Huh. Okay. So if you had, I don't know if what's the craziest story that you can share, or the craziest thing that you've seen see, I hate putting people on the spot, but what's something that sticks out as an interesting story for each of you? We've been about an hour and a half, so I probably we'll get her finishing toward the end, but what do you, something that sticks out to you over the years?
There's been a bunch of them, but the one that sticks in my mind was, to put it as delicately as I can, there was an inmate, and I think he was in the super SNU, the super special needs unit.
Yep.
Okay. He got a hold of a pair of fingernail clippers, and he gave himself a vasectomy.
Are you serious? Wow. Oh, well, that'll do it. That story was worth the price of admission right there, folks. My God.
That one stands out the most.
Wow. Okay. That'll do it. So yeah, there's no end to, and how do you, I mean, like you said, mental health is a big concern there, but how do you come home and, I don't know, decompress after being involved in something like that?
That's where the mental health for the staff is so important. And a lot of us tend to click off into a circle.
Okay.
Because like if you work in a certain part of the prison, you tend to end up having a sculpted mind in that direction. If you work in general pop, you tend to prefer talking to people that deal with that daily.
Yep, that makes sense.
Tend to prefer dealing with maintenance, dietary prefers, and so on. But Garmin and I were notorious for blending those cliques.
Okay.
Because we like hearing the weird stories. We like we don't want to just talk about prison. We have a great, very small, but a great, very small circle of friends. And when we get together, it's kind of like maybe reminiscent about some prison stuff, because a lot of them have retired.
Mm-hmm.
But minus making fun of some people and just shooting the crap and seeing how our day is going, we don't even discuss it. Now, if I come home and have a bad day, a lot of us tend to marry off into our own profession.
Okay.
But our divorce rate is well over 50%, and our average death rate is within 6 months after we retire.
Yes, sir.
That's a big number that they say. If you've been in prison for a while, within 6 to 10 months, you're most likely going to pass away.
Is that also including suicide in those numbers, or not?
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Wow, that's great. So here's the thing. I'd love to have you guys back on again sometime if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll go down maybe I'll put together some more questions and send them along. But I mean, as much as I love talking about homesteading, I have lots of people who come on talking about homesteading, but the penal system's very intriguing as well. And if you're up for, some more stories and just kind of go around the horn with a few things, I'd love to, if you're up for it.
You can bring the
What's that?
You can bring the fingernail clippers.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm still married. Becky still loves me. She hasn't forced me yet, but no. So How can people find you guys if they want to catch up with you and figure out what the stupid farmers are up to?
I am usually the one who does all the posting, and with
Okay.
a crazy schedule, I admittedly kind of ebb and flow. So we welcome anyone that wants to join, but it really is for our amusement and also to help record kind of for free our history as we've culminated onto this property. So the Stupid Farmers on YouTube,
Okay.
and Instagram and TikTok
I
and
don't think so.
Facebook for a
And
a
it
Facebook.
is the Stupid Farmers. Because
Okay.
I know there is another just Stupid Farmers out there somewhere. So we are the Stupid Farmers.
I think the thing I appreciate it the most is that it you're open about your ignorance, and I mean that in a good sense, because
Dumb as a bag of rocks.
but we all start somewhere with anything, right? And just because I call myself Toolman Tim doesn't mean I'm an expert. It means that I'm just willing to learn, and it sounds like you guys are the same way.
Yeah, there's so many ways that our bathroom door is an odd. Sorry, he had
That's
butted me.
okay.
Our bathroom door is a very odd height and width. It's just not a regular. You know those typical closet folding. Oh, you're going to it, Garmin?
I'm going to it.
Sure, that's fun.
It's a little dark, but I think you'll
That's
be able
okay.
to see it. But yeah, so it's a billfold door
Okay.
that opens up like that. Then it was a double billfold, but it actually fit perfectly without me having to trim it. Us having just the three panels
That's
going
awesome.
across there.
What's the full width of it? Do you know?
I want to say 40 inches.
Oh, that is odd.
Yeah, it's fairly narrow.
Okay.
No, but
we
so.
were just scratching our heads, and I came across on it wasn't Craigslist. I think it was a place that door for free. And like, I'll figure out what to do with it. It's free, and it was in great shape. We went and picked it up, and I was like, I don't know anything about them. Do those panels come off? And he was like, we could do that. We could totally do that. And then he can build a house, and I can autocorrect a lot of the punctuation that needs to be fixed. So can you show the door? I would love to end that on the door for
Sure.
what Jim and Sandy wrote.
Oh, that part. Okay, yeah.
I just want to pay
Sure.
homage to the people beforehand. These wonderful people wrote a message on this door that I find just so amazing.
Oh, what's that say?
Please.
Yep.
If you have entered our home and it is home to us, the only one we call home, please do not destroy it. Enjoy its beauty, solitude, blood, sweat, and tears we have literally put into every board that you see. I'm sorry for whatever's brought you to break in, but please find peace here without destruction. Jim and Sandy.
That is nice. Because that is, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. I like that. That's an ongoing issue with any property in the woods, and that's a neat way of putting it. I like that.
It also helps that we are known for being crazy here, so
that's okay.
Thank you so much for inviting us. We think you do a wonderful thing and getting your knowledge out there, and even just helping people weather through some questions. So thank you for bringing us into your community.
Anytime. And yes, I don't say it to every guest, I guarantee it, but I would love to have you guys back on and pick your brain again. So
well,
thank you guys. If you want to, you can hang in the background for just 1 second. I'll close up the show and I'll be right back here. Give me 1 sec.
Sounds good.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's so neat how every time I go to a live event, I always meet some interesting folk who I just want to pick their brain and have on the show, and, kindred spirits. And I love bringing people in from all different walks of life. And these guys were great. I love it. You can just see that kind of learning attitude, and just, I appreciate it. So we will definitely have Tiffany and Brian back on, because it's conversation isn't finished yet. So guys, with that, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.